Part 2, Episode 6, The First Burdens of Life. After my father left, my mother became the one who carried everything. Life wasn't easy for the three of us in this unfamiliar land. Every morning I woke up before dawn. The house was still dark and quiet, only the wind blowing through the wooden cracks and the sound of my mother starting the fire broke the silence. The smell of smoke, mixed with leftover rice warming on the fire, became the most familiar scent of my childhood. That was when I started to realize we were poor. I didn't have new clothes for the first day of school. My notebooks were thin, my textbooks were hand-me-downs with missing pages and scribbles all over. One year, I had to share books with my sister. She studied first, and I waited for my turn to use them later. At first, I felt sad, but then I got used to it. I started to notice things. My mother counting every last coin after returning from the market, hesitating over whether to buy rice or notebooks. I didn't understand everything, but I knew enough to stop asking for snacks like other kids. When I got home from school, instead of begging for money, I asked to help in the field or pick wild vegetables with the neighbors. I didn't know how much help that really was, but it made me feel like I was doing something meaningful. One time, I walked past a snack shop. I saw my classmates laughing, licking ice cream cones in the summer heat. I stopped and watched them for a moment, then walked away. It wasn't because I didn't want it. I did. But I knew that money was for rice. I never told my mom about these moments. I didn't want her to feel sad. One day, she saw me patching torn textbooks with tape and plastic wrap. She was silent for a long time, then asked, "Are you sad that we can't afford things like other kids?" I looked at her and shook my head. But inside, my chest was tight and my eyes were burning. She didn't say another word. She just pulled me into her arms. I could hear her heartbeat, strong and steady, the heartbeat of a woman refusing to surrender to hardship. Slowly, I became more responsible. I woke up earlier to help with chores, cooked rice, cleaned the house, picked firewood. I even collected scrap bottles and cans around the village with some neighborhood kids. One afternoon, I brought home a small bag of crushed cans and proudly showed her. She patted my head and smiled. Not a happy smile, but a tired, grateful one. Bit by bit, I stopped being the carefree child I used to be. Worries and thoughts began to fill my young mind. I didn't know when I would truly grow up, but I knew I had to become strong for my mother, for my sister, and for our tiny, fragile family. That was the kind of childhood I had. While other kids grew up with toys, new books, and warm clothes, I grew up with flickering oil lamps, my mother's deep sighs, and the quiet, gentle gaze of my older sister. It wasn't a perfect childhood, but it became the foundation of all the strength I carry with me today. Part 2, Episode 7, My Older Sister. In the memories of my childhood, there was always someone quietly by my side, my older sister. She was 3 years older than me, like a friend, a protector, and a mirror I looked up to. Unlike me, she wasn't mischievous. She was gentle, obedient, and deeply caring. After our father left, I noticed she smiled less. But every time our mother was sad, she was the first to hold her and wipe away her tears. I could only stand nearby in silence, not knowing how to help. She learned to cook at a young age. Whenever our mother came home late from work, she would cook the rice, wash the vegetables, and start the fire herself. I was still too young to help much, but I loved sitting beside her, watching, learning, listening to her soft voice. Once, when there was no more rice left in the house and Mother hadn't returned yet, she found a small bowl of leftover rice and split it in half for me. I looked at the small portion she kept for herself and said, "You eat. I'm not hungry." She smiled, patting my head. "You eat. You have school tomorrow. I'm already full." But I knew she wasn't. On rainy days, when our mother worked far away and it was just the two of us at home, she would light the oil lamp, take out her books to study, and teach me along the way. Some of the first letters and words I learned came from her patient teaching. I remember one night I had a high fever. She stayed up the whole time, wiping my forehead, checking on me, running in and out restlessly. By morning, she had collapsed asleep beside me out of exhaustion. I grew up surrounded by her quiet tenderness and sacrifice. There were no expensive gifts, like no grand promises, but there was a love that was steady, genuine, and enduring. To me, my sister wasn't just part of my childhood. She was the one who walked with me through the darkest days. Even if time pulls us in different directions, even if life changes us in ways we can't predict, I will always remember, if my childhood had any light at all, it was the light that came from my sister. Part 2, Episode 8, Three Little Kids and Our Teacher. Back then, the school I attended had only one class, and just three students, a boy, a girl, and me. We were different in personalities, but alike in circumstances. Poor, struggling, barefoot kids walking along bumpy dirt roads just to get to school. The boy was quick and a bit mischievous, but kind-hearted. The girl was quiet, shy, and always carried a small, worn-out school bag. We sat at the same desk, shared every piece of chalk, every blank page of our notebooks. But the most special person in that little school wasn't us. It was our teacher. The school was deep in a poor rural area, surrounded by scattered houses and muddy paths. Most teachers came and left. They had their reasons, seeking better conditions, bigger schools, more students, but she stayed. Even with only 3 students, she came to school every day, neatly dressed, carrying her old teaching bag, always wearing a gentle smile. She didn't just teach us how to read and write. She taught us how to be good people. She told stories, sang songs, and patiently repeated the most basic lessons over and over. On rainy days, we thought she wouldn't show up, but then we'd see her in the distance, wearing a conical hat, feet covered in mud, holding her stack of books. She'd arrive, wipe down our wobbly desks, boil water for tea, and check to see if we were soaked. On hot days, she sometimes brought bananas from home and shared them between us. "Eat up, you'll need the energy to learn," she'd say. When people asked her, "Why stay when there are only 3 kids?" she'd just smile and say, "Because if I don't stay, who will teach them?" Back then, we were too young to understand the depth of her kindness. But now I know. She planted the first seeds in our hearts, the seeds of knowledge, of gratitude, and of dreams. In my memories, that old school with a rusty tin roof held one true angel, and that was her. Part 2, Episode 9, Farewell to Our Teacher. That day was the last class for the 3 of us under the old school roof. The next morning, we would officially begin 6th grade. That meant transferring to a new school, a farther place with more classmates and more teachers, but it also meant we would no longer be studying with our beloved teacher. That morning, the weather was beautiful, but the air in the classroom felt heavier than ever. Our teacher still taught as usual, still wore her gentle smile, but her eyes fell silent in moments when no one spoke. The 3 of us were quiet too. No jokes, no laughter like other days. Perhaps deep down, we all knew we were leaving. We were leaving. After the lesson, she called each of us forward, handing us a brand new notebook with a handwritten note inside. "Keep learning, wherever you go. Don't forget what I've taught you." My hands trembled as I held the notebook. At the moment of goodbye, she still smiled. "I'm proud of all of you." But her voice cracked and her eyes had turned red. We didn't know what to say except, "Thank you." None of us dared to cry, but the tears were right there, ready to fall. That was the first time I truly felt the sorrow of parting from someone dear. The simple school, the old classroom, and the teacher who had stood by us in our early years, all were left behind as we stepped into a new chapter of our lives. Part 2, Episode 10, A New School, A New World. My first day at the new school, my heart was pounding, filled with waves of fear and anxiety. It felt strangely similar to the day my mother took me to my very first school. But this time, I was older. I didn't cry. I just quietly held her hand tightly and looked around with wide, uncertain eyes. The school gate stood tall and wide, packed with students chatting and laughing. Everything felt so loud, so fast, so overwhelming. I felt like a tiny dot in a sea of people. Then the school bell rang, and the crowd began to move. My hands slipped from my mother's. I turned back to look at her one last time. Her gentle smile and warm eyes said it all without words. "You'll be okay." I followed the crowd to my classroom, each step heavy with hesitation. Everything was unfamiliar. Large blackboards, tidy rows of desks, teachers I didn't know, and classmates I had never met. Gone were the small classrooms with only 3 students. Gone was the kind, familiar teacher. During the first lesson, I stayed silent the whole time. I didn't dare raise my hand or speak. I just hoped the teacher wouldn't call on me. At recess, I didn't go out to play. I sat quietly in the corner of the classroom, watching the other students laugh and run across the courtyard. My heart ached with memories of my old school. The cozy warmth, the simple lessons, the laughter of my two close friends, and the gentle voice of my teacher. Day after day, I tried to blend in, but everything still felt foreign. Until one small moment changed things. A boy sitting next to me turned and asked, "Hey, where are you from?" Just that one question made me feel less alone. I smiled shyly and answered. He told me he had also moved here from a rural village. Slowly, conversations began to form. We helped each other with homework, sat together during lunch, and teamed up in class. Little by little, I started to feel less invisible. I began to raise my hand in class. I dared to ask questions. I joined in on games. I laughed. And I learned something important. No matter where you go, if you open your heart even just a little, the world will open up in return. Still, deep inside, I kept a quiet corner in my heart, a place untouched, where memories of my old school, my kind teacher, and my first two childhood friends would always remain.